Hey, what's up everybody, it's Josh. You know, half the time I make videos I don't even know what the hell I'm going to talk about. I mean, I have like a subject, but then I just rant. But I try to keep it organized, but I'm not going to do that. Because this subject is too complicated. But we've got these vibrations. Okay, first off, as we're learning, everything is vibration. Everything is frequency. A comment popped up on one of my videos today. And it makes me laugh. It said that it was a response to Bad Brain Prep, actually. He'd made a comment on there. And the comment response was something to the, I wish I had it in front of me, but because the video was about frequencies, solfeggio, I believe, stuff like that. And they said, be careful, because frequencies and electromagnetism and light are all tools of demons, and that the demons use, or that it's prophesied in the Bible that demons are going to, you know, electromagnetic frequencies are utilized by demons to control people's minds. Fuck. I mean, people, come on. These are the people that make it hard to believe anybody when they have something rational to say. These are the ones that make it hard to deal with religious folk, because one assumes that they're all like that, and I know they're not. I don't assume that, but it's so fanatical and ridiculous. I said, you know, oh, well, I guess the entire universe is a demon then, because everything is vibration and frequency. It's like, you know, do your homework before you go spouting off stupid things, and quit saying shit's prophesied in the Bible. That is, I'm sorry, I'm riding John's coattails here, because he was going off about Jesus freaks, and it got me riled because I was thinking about it too. Who the fuck are you to say that the Bible has prophecies in it and not be able to even point out where they are? You know, I've heard people say like 5 or 6 different things about one prophecy. You know, like, oh, this is what it means. No, this is what it means. You know, all the ancient, you know, people used it hundreds of years ago. No, it means right now. No, it's in the future. It's like John said, who the fuck are you to say who Jesus is, let alone what the prophecies in the Bible mean? So that's for another subject. But along that line, when the person said that about demons being involved in it, it got me tripping out about my original subject, which was the original subject of my video today, which was going to be the electric universe. And I am fascinated with the electric universe theory. I'm always watching. I watch the Sun Report every morning. I watch the 3-minute news, or 2-minute news, or 4-minute news, whatever it is that day. But that's Suspicious Observers, and he's got some great videos about the electric universe. And I also follow the what are they called? Is it just the electric universe theory or group, or I don't even know what, I can't remember what it's called, but they're always coming out with these great videos. And they came out with one yesterday that it really, they're talking about stars, okay? Now this coincides with the video I watched about something else. It was I can't remember what it was, through the wormhole or something, but they were talking about how they used to believe that stars are an island in space, right? Just a floating star with its own little solar system, completely unaffected by other stars. And now they found out that indeed there's actually an interconnectedness. And I'm not going to try to explain how it all works. You call it like pearls on a string. If you picture it like atoms, they're all charged in their own little spot, but they have interconnecting magnetic fields, and that makes total sense. You know, every one of your cells has its own magnetic field, that all together, then your body has its own magnetic field. You know, the world has its own magnetic field. The solar system has one. Why wouldn't the solar system intertwine with the galaxy, and the galaxy with the rest of the galaxies? So you see these all-encompassing waves of energy expanding outward. And if you follow the frequency model, that everything is vibration, and you follow the electric universe theory, which states that we have absolutely no idea what's going on in space, but there are some, I mean, like the video they showed, there was this what was it, 3 trillion light years or something, this long electric arc of gas, shooting out into space. I mean, it's just unfathomable to figure out how big these things really are, these structures in space. Unfathomable, even for scientists to really grasp. It's like, yeah, you can know in your mind how big a trillion light years is, but that doesn't mean you can even comprehend really what it would be like to, that distance is too far to grasp. We can only know it in our minds. We can never travel it. So, anyway, I started talking about this electric universe theory and how it ties in with this idea I follow, I guess. One of the theories, which is the galactic wave theory. The galactic wave theory states that every so often we go through these cycles where these waves come through space. It's never been quite explained as to how these happen, what these waves are, or where they come from. But they send a repercussion through the entire solar system. It's like the Earth has these, well, it's a 26,000 year cycle, right? It coincides with the Kali Yuga. It is the Hindu cycle, which also coincides with the zodiac. And we were in the Kali Yuga. Now we're in the I can't remember the name of it, but it's a Bronze Age. We're back into the Bronze Age. It goes through a cycle, and we went through the Dark Ages. Now we're in the Bronze Age, and once we're past here, we'll go on into the Silver Age, and in a couple hundred years or a couple thousand years, we'll be back into the Golden Age again. So this is the idea behind it, that there are golden ages of mankind, that to where the knowledge, this is what we've been talking about for so long, is how do we get this knowledge? Where does it come from? And how do we attain it again? How do we get the knowledge back that our ancestors had? And we possibly can't. It may be something that's inherent within it has to do with the cycle. The Golden Age means that humans have more faculties available to us. That's the theory, is that when we go through the Dark Age, humans just can't think correctly. And they talk about how we only utilize part of our brain. And they say, when do we utilize all of our brain? That's supposedly when, according to that cycle, that something happens. I'm not going to try to guess what, but which either speeds up or slows down or does something to the magnetic fields and allows humans to flourish and to utilize things like psychokinesis or telekinesis or psychic abilities or the all-knowing. And this is why we talk about ancient people as if they may have learned. Who passed them this knowledge? Who gave them this knowledge? How did they get this knowledge? They didn't. It was just there. And you see, that's the thing. They utilized the knowledge that was all available to them. That was just the norm for those people. Now, this is all theory, speculation, and it's one of the strong beliefs that I hold, that I haven't really talked about, that humans go through cycles where we have more intelligence, where we're able to utilize our brains better. So, right now, we have no choice. We're stuck in this age, and we have all this technology that's brought us all this perhaps knowledge that we otherwise wouldn't have been able to figure out, but we can't quite put a name on it or figure out what it is. I mean, perhaps in the top of the Golden Age, you just know what God is, and you know everything, you feel everything. I mean, how would you function if you knew all that stuff? How would we function as a society? Well, we wouldn't. We'd function as a community. And no one need go hungry type thing, no one need want, it would just be common sense to help people. That would just be common knowledge. So, with these cycles, if this is true, it really got me thinking about, okay, so a lot of scientists believe that we're in a binary star system, and there are a lot of people that argue that point, but the fact is you can't really gauge a floating island through space with the sciences that we have right now. There very well may be a binary star system. It could be a brown dwarf, it could be a black hole, who knows what it is, but it says that it's more than norm. I guess over half of stars have a binary star, which is where they follow an elliptical orbit and they swing around each other. And if this is true and this is really happening, it could explain how we go through these cycles. As we accelerate around the other star, our solar system picks up speed. And this this speed difference causes all kinds of magnetic disturbances, and it really I tied it in with the galactic wave theory to think, okay, so maybe it's not a galactic wave, maybe it's not an external wave at all, because it never made sense to me that it would be, because where does this wave come from? I mean, is it just shooting through space? Space is a big place, you know. I mean, if there's a pulse, they think it could be a pulsar or, you know, something that has a regular beat. We don't know, but the fact, what I think it is that as we pass this binary star and the magnetic fields interact with each other, that's what either brings us into the dark age or into the light age. Now, this ties in with Nibiru, which is something that I've steadfastly denied for a long time. I've always been intrigued by the idea of Nibiru, the dark star. You know, it's what is it, right? Does it exist? And I truly believe that it does exist, but I don't know if it exists as a physical entity, an actual astral body, or a planet, or a star, or if it's simply something within our own souls. And that's something we always have to consider. When you read about something that appears to be physical, sometimes it has to be internal, or it may have been referred to and described that way so for people to get it. Now, my thought is that perhaps these ancient peoples were so adamant about saving this knowledge, not because they wanted to prove their culture, say the pyramids, for example, not because they wanted to show anybody how good they were at what they did, not because they wanted to build a tomb for them, and not because they wanted to build a tribute to a god or anything like that, but rather because they wanted to preserve this knowledge to show future generations that this time will happen again, and make something so intensely perfect that no one can deny that it was built beyond the means of our current capabilities. Now, the pyramids, that would explain a lot. If the people were completely in tune with their environment and had the knowledge, they wouldn't have to think about how big to cut. They would just do it. Just like ants, you know, they don't consciously think about where they're taking the food or how to build the nest, but as a community, they build the nest. See, one ant can do nothing by himself, but they do their jobs, and that very well could have been how many of these, you know, I'm not going to say the ancient temples now, because I'm thinking pre-Atlantis or Atlantis days, and this is I do believe that Atlantis existed. I also believe that Atlantis is an archetype for our own being, but at the same time, or our lost knowledge, but at the same time, I'm starting, you know, I don't know whether to, I've never known whether to believe it was a real place, but I always have had an inkling that it probably was. And during the last ice age, I believe that a lot of the coastlines were exposed up to 200 miles out further than they are right now, especially some of the shallow waters. And when the ice age ended and the water rushed back in, it inundated all the coastal areas in the world. Now, I don't know how fast that happened or how slow, but the fact is, if there was a culture during that time, or before that time, then it was most likely built on the coast. People don't just move inland, and you know, like they do now. I mean, people would live up in the hills and whatnot, but I think 80 to 90% of the people in the world live on the coast, and it's a lot of people. So if this, you know, major flood happened, or, you know, a lot of people, I think it probably coincides with the idea of Noah's flood, but I don't think it was really a flood. I think it was an inundation. Water doesn't just appear across the entire face of the earth, is what I'm saying. That's the science behind it, that you don't just have a worldwide flood. The water doesn't just appear and flood everything. A lot of people have these, there's ancient stories about how the water came down the sides of the mountains 40 feet deep, and it rained and rained and rained. It doesn't matter how hard it rains. You can only get so much flood water, you know, and it can only dump so hard before it's expired and new clouds must move in. I can't see a worldwide 40-foot flood, so anyway, I'm thinking the coastlines were inundated. When that happened, we lost all our knowledge, because most of the temples and the ideas and history behind Atlantis, whatever it may have been, were lost at that time. Since then, we've found strange things like the Antikythera mechanism, which was basically a computer, one of the earliest computers, thousands of years old, and it's got, I don't think it was that old. it was less than 1,000 years old. I can't remember, but it was a kind of a gold-colored box that had all these gears in it, and it was it predicted celestial events, the movement of the stars, the planets, you know. And when we look back, we're dying to find instruments to how people 5,000-10,000 years ago could have measured stars and understood planets. And we think, well, if they had a lot of time on their hands to watch the stars. Well, that's true, but I don't think that every single person there would just lay out all night and just look at the stars. I mean, they had lives, they had communities, they had stuff to do during the daytime. There were a select group of astronomers who would do these things, and the devices that Chinese had were like, they're pretty intricate, you know, big rotating wheels within wheels, and some of them had such simple gauges as sticks in the sand. But I guess that's what I'm saying, is that I think that the knowledge was there at one time or another, and that it was left. People really wanted to tell folks, hey, you know, this knowledge is going to be here again someday, and that we're just grasping, trying to grab what we can from it. So it's a weird world, isn't it? As I'm talking here, I'm sitting here kind of putting pieces together for myself too, because this is something I've been really invested in my time for a long time, is the idea behind, I guess, information, knowledge, the creation of man, the reason for man. I better check the time on this thing. I got a few minutes left. So anybody interested should look into the Kali Yuga and the Yuga cycles and look into the way it coincides with the zodiac. Astrology is not just some ignorant society's way to explain the stars. Astrology is very, very detailed account of each individual, the circumstances we're born under, how we're most likely to be and react to. Anybody who's ever read a true horoscope knows that they're pretty damn accurate a lot of the time. And I've tried to read one from somebody else to see if it was, you know, would also give me the same result, and it usually doesn't. But anyway, astrology. I'm not saying I'm not sold on people who write horoscopes. I'm saying that my birth sign, I'm a Sagittarius, and when I was born in the year of the rabbit, and I look back on through the birth dates and all the different things that people say, hey, this explains, you know, a lot about your personality type. The ancients used that. They utilized that. A kid was born. They'd look on their chart and say, okay, this kid was born on this day. This is what he needs to do. This is his path. This is what he'll be involved in. So, yada, yada, yada. It worked for them. And I'm not sold on the fact that it's 100% accurate. I'm just saying that where did this come from? Where did this knowledge come from? It's not like that somebody wrote down on a chart every time a person was born, well, this is what they acted like through their life, so they must be this kind of person. And what are the chances that so many folks would have these same attributes, that were born on the same dates? Now, I know this isn't always true, but a lot of the time it is, and it's pretty interesting stuff. So at the very least, they had a way to gauge the way a person was most likely to be, or was likely to be. Now, where did this knowledge come from? Well, it was probably inherent. It was probably something that they just had. It was something they were aware of. Like, everybody knows what it's like to have intuition. You know, imagine having intuition about everything you did. Not necessarily a voice, but utter quietude of the mind, and to be able to just accept things the way they are, and everything comes to you. Now, most folks know, who have taken the path of least resistance, that you don't take the path of least resistance, but you take the path of least turmoil. And you still have to put forth effort, but when you take that approach, and every moment of every day you think about what you're doing, you start to have a different respect for, I don't know, how people could be. And so when I picture the way I think in my mind, and I think, God, not if everybody thought like me, but if everybody was working on themselves, if everyone had a path that they were taking to try to be better, and then it would be a beautiful world. And that's all I'm saying. I think everyone can be better. We all can, and I'm constantly working at it. I've got so many issues to work out in my own life, and I look forward to them, you know, with gusto. I'm like, go for it, right on, cool. I'm still smoking cigarettes. All right, cool, something to quit. That's how I look at it. That ties into the subject of my video, because when I was thinking about these behavioral patterns, I thought, back in the day, you know, in ancient times, perhaps they all just kind of accepted their path and their fate as I guess not seekers, just knowers. That would be the beautiful thing. But I think that the truth is, if you really know something, you can't really express it if it's that deep, and that's one of the hardest things to understand. But there may very well be folks out there right now who still have this ancient knowledge, but just don't know how to express it. It's Zen. It's something that you can't put into words. It's like people who try to describe Jesus or God. Like anyone who tries to put God into a context or say God wants this or God wants that is, you know, that's where it gets out of hand, because we are so incapable of saying what God wants. We can feel what's right and wrong. I've had this debate with people for a long time, but about what is right and wrong, whether there's evil. I know this, I came across as being kind of a non-dualist. I'm not taking that approach. I'm in between. I'm on the fence. I think that evil has too many connotations and descriptions of what it could be. Just like the word art, or the word stupid, or the word, I don't know, I think of some ones, you know, even the word cool, like someone's cool. Well, what makes them cool? Well, they do things that I think are interesting and cool. Well, that's not cool to me, you know. So, and art, we were talking about this the other day. There was an experiment done with with a group of people, and they took them into a gallery, and it was all set up ahead of time. They took them into an art gallery with horrendous paintings, all the way up to like really good paintings, you know, various types of artists. And when they were done, they were asked to fill out a card. What was they think was the best painting, and what they thought was the worst. The very crappiest painting, it was guaranteed to get at least one person out of 10 who thought it was the best. And the very best painting from the professional artist was definitely voted by at least one person to be the worst painting. The information they got back was so skewed that they realized that there's no way anybody can determine how another person views beauty. Just the same, we can't view, or we can't think the same, or we can't see things the same, and we can't explain things the same. So that is due to our own individuality, our ego, our person. So if ancient societies were able to separate from that and work as a community, as a whole, that's a pretty big leg up. I mean, if you think about it, that's like, you know, you can't fool a person if they're not trying to get something, if they're not trying to make a profit. You know how most people who lose really bad in life did it to themselves? Because usually what they lose is money, and the only time a person loses money is usually when they're trying to get more of it. This isn't always true. I mean, there's plenty of times when people get robbed or just, but let's say if a person says, hey, I'll sell you this for half the price it would be, and you end up buying something that's fake, well, that was because you were trying to get too good of a deal. But if everyone was honest in the whole community, people wouldn't be able to fool each other anymore, and I think that's how it would be if we all had this golden age view, this one world thing. So this is all theory. This is what I'm starting to piece together in my life, is to put together all these things I learned when I was younger. And I better check the time on this again. All right, 2 minutes. So I wanted to tie up by saying that the galactic wave, that energy that supposedly affects the Earth every so often, is due to the interconnection between the binary star system. No, we wouldn't necessarily see the star if it was there. Space is a big place, and it would mean that every 24,900 years, something like that, there's going to be another golden age, and perhaps we'll be fortunate enough to reincarnate into a time during that age and look back on some of the ignorances. However, I still know that we have to be ignorant to an extent, because that's what makes humanity so interesting. That's why we're the viewers, the tentacles of God, each one of us. Love you guys. You're awesome. Peace.